Hey now, what's going on YouTube? ModzvilleUSA back with another video, and this might look a little different but somewhat familiar. Got my hands on this DSR 70,000 PSX, the actual Sony PSX, which is a PS2 but giant, and it was also a DVR machine. Now if you go look around a stock one of these, they are going to be in all Japanese. They're region locked, and via the power of just some simple soft modding, I'm going to show you how to convert it to English like this one here, as well as get region free PS1 and PS2 discs working. Burned PS1 discs should also work, and that is through Mechapwn. So it's essentially going to be 3 steps here. We're going to use Freemcboot, and then from there we need to set it up specifically for the PSX, and then from there we flash Mechapwn, makes it region free, and then we transfer over the English files. That's essentially it. So I bought this for junk from Japan. And if you get it, if I were to put a disc in right now, odds are it will not read from here the menu. But with Freemcboot, put that disc in, turn it on, and it should boot up. That is because the PSX has 2 separate lasers. Hopefully I remember to put some stock footage here of what that looks like inside the disk drive. But you've got 2 different lasers. You've got the very rare, I think it's a Sanyo laser. They're difficult to source, and that it was for burning DVDs. As you can see, we've got a bunch of fun little Japanese TV shows, as this was essentially a TiVo, and you could pop in a blank disc and burn what you've been watching on your PSX, which you have saved. Now when you boot it up, it checks that laser first. That laser fires up, detects the media, and then it switches over to the traditional 400C fat PS2 laser. But if that laser is dead, it'll act like everything's dead. Now in my unit, that laser is dead, but specifically Freemcboot forces it into game mode, so it essentially bypasses that laser. Probably isn't going to show up here in XMB, but if you have the disc in, when you boot it with Freemcboot, it should boot right up, and I'll show you that after we set it up. So what are we going to need? You're going to want to have the following. So what you're going to need to do this is a Freemcboot memory card. I'm using my SD to PSX. You will need to power this externally, just because of the way the PSX works and the way this works. It needs to boot into the bank before turning the console on. PSX doesn't have a reset. So you don't need one of these. You can use a set up an 8 megabyte, a traditional OEM Sony 8 megabyte memory card, and you're also going to need a memory card that has Freemcboot set up on it already. The memory card though does need to be the 8 megabyte official Sony one. Could not get it working on the 64 meg ones. You're going to need a thumb drive formatted FAT32. I'm not going to be going over how to format it, but I use GUI format, and I'll have a link to that below. Look up a video on how to do it if you need to figure it out. Also, any 32 gigabyte flash drive or lower should be FAT32 by default. You're going to need a PS2 to set up this PSX Freemcboot memory card. So I've got my 90K on hand, which works with Freemcboot, so I'm going to be using that. And obviously the PSX. And that's about it. So software setup, I'm going to have the files I'm using linked down below. We need the Freemcboot installer. We need Mechapwn. Grab the latest version, link below on the GitHub, the release page. And we are going to use, or then choose whichever model DESR you have. You need to use the appropriate translation files. Mine is a 70,000, so I'm going to be using those. If you have one of the other models, I think the file structure is a bit different, but it should be similar. You're just going to back up the original files and replace them with the English translated ones. So that is the gist of it. I'm going to hook these up to my Cinnabar Red PS2, and we're going to make the PSX Freemcboot. Okay, here we are on the Freemcboot, the PS2 with the Freemcboot memory card inserted. Come on over here, ulauchelf, or ulauchelf, or just hold R1 as the console is booting on the Freemcboot screen. We go to File Browser. I'm gonna go to my USB drive here, and I have, now any of these should work, but I'm going to use the latest 1966 Freemcboot installer, fmbcinstaller.elf. Okay, now from here you push R1 and install FMCB for PSX. Now if you are overriding a memory card that already has Freemcboot on it, you need to uninstall first. I ran into that issue when I was trying to do this without uninstalling it. It doesn't work. You need to uninstall Freemcboot before flashing the new one. Now ideally you have two memory cards. You have the one that already has Freemcboot on it, and you're using a vanilla 8 megabyte official Sony memory card, or an SD to PSX, whatever it is. But yeah, figure it out, and we're going to flash this to the new memory card. So yeah, just hit X on it. If you have two memory cards in, you'll choose memory card 1 or 2, whichever one you want to choose, and then choose yes. I'm going to keep my CNF. Don't have, mine's default anyway, so okay, we got the Freemcboot logo. I'm holding R1. Does it boot to ulauchelf? It does indeed. It does indeed. Yeah, this I didn't know, because it was set to mass, which is USB, but I don't have a USB drive in it, so I guess maybe it looks for it on the USB and then on the memory card. I don't know, but the default is fine. Just hold R1, you'll get here. Now I'm going to put my USB drive in here, and we're going to flash Mechapwn, which you should have downloaded already. Alright. Now we're going to be flashing Mechapwn. This will make our console region free for PS1 and PS2 discs. It should also play PS1 backups. PS2 backups it's not going to do, but essentially that's everything. It's really the only advantage a mod chip would have if we want to play burned PS2 discs natively. And we would still need to be running Freemcboot to force it into game mode. So yeah, pretty much everything you want you get from Mechapwn, and it saves you a lot of headache from installing a mod chip. So come here, grab the latest pre-release candidate, whatever the latest version is. Definitely at least RC4 for the PSX, because RC3 has some black screen issues for flashing into a DESR. So at the very least, RC4. I already have that on my flash card. You just click this file, you download it, you put it on your FAT32 thumbstick, you're good to go. So I'll see you back on the PSX. We come in to wherever you saved Mechapwn. And my flash drive is a mess. Excuse the mess, I got a lot of shit on here. So RC4, that is the latest one. So we're going to choose this. You need to have your flash drive plugged in because it's going to dump. It's going to take a dump right here. So push X, and O to install it. It'll take you a bit longer because it's going to make a backup before you can get here. I'm going to push circle. And now we need to physically unplug our PSX and plug it back in. And we come right back here. You gotta boot it twice. Four is what we want. Alright, X. We're gonna go change region, retail-dex. And I'm just going to go to restore factory defaults. Force unlock is not an option on the PSX, which I'm fine with. I never use force unlock, so I'm going to choose X. And we're good. So I'm going to unplug it, plug it back in, and I want to boot it by putting in a North American disc. Got God of War on hand, and I'll show you what happens. Okay, got the disc in there, got the Freemcboot screen. And would you look at that? Booting God of War right up. So, yeah, this is honestly the way to go if you've got a PSX. Freemcboot forces it into game mode. So, if you buy a console that's not reading discs, there's a very good chance it's just that burner laser that's dead. So it's not going to go from the burner laser to the one that's responsible for loading PS2 and PS1 games. It reads DVDs and CDs. So just installing Freemcboot, you should be able to test your discs like this. Now these games do not show up in the PSX menu if I put the disc in when it's loaded. It's got to be on boot. Sometimes games do show up there, but essentially if you're playing a disc, you want it in the system as the console boots. So I'll do this with a PS1 disc now. Well, alright. Tony Hawk would just stick on a black screen. I've got my Japanese Rockman whatever disc. I forget which one, but it's the one with the wacky DRM on it. So it sets off non-stealth PS1 chips. So PS1 is hanging on the Freemcboot screen for quite some time. We should get the PS1 logo. Okay. Well, so at the moment we have North American PS2. North American PS1 does not seem to be working. Japanese PS1 is indeed working. So let's round it off with a Japanese PS2 disc. Okay, Japanese PS2 disc is indeed booting up. There it is. Japanese Star Wars Battlefront 2. Okay, so Region Free PS2 doesn't seem to be working for Region Free PS1. I'm going to try one. Well, alright. we're back here in ulauchelf, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get North American PS1 disc to work. Let me know in the comments if you're doing this, what your mileage is, and what model of PSX DSR you've got. 7000 Mechapwn doesn't seem to make PS1 region free, but it does for PS2, which is pretty damn good. So File Explorer, last thing we're going to want to do is convert it to English. This is optional, but that is the language I speak, so it is nice. So PS2, grab these down below. So there's two different file sets. Make sure you know which version of PSX you have. We've got the one for 5000, 5100, 7000, 7100. There's separate ones for 5500, 57, 75, and 77. And the formats look different. So this is the one in here. We've got XO, SD. And here we've got a bunch of shit. So back up what you need. You're going to want to go to the hard drive and figure out where these files are stored. You're going to want to back your original ones up just in case something goes wrong, and then transfer the new ones over, replacing anything it needs to replace. And that's pretty much it. So I'm not going to do this, but I'll show you essentially what you need to do. I've already done it. Don't want to do it again. So from here, HDD. So ours is the XOSD is the folder that we need to put over. So I believe it's system, and there it is, XOSD. Packages, right? So config. Saves are in here, right? Okay. Right, and packages. Got it. Okay, so that's right. So HDD system XOSD. So I'm going to select this with X. I'm going to push R1 and copy it, and then go back, go to your thumb drive, and paste that somewhere. Maybe make a new folder. PSX backup, R1 paste. Once you've pasted that, come on in, grab what comes over. So I would be, in my case, I'd be copying this. If you have the other models, you would probably come in here, select all of these, just hold X, and then R1 copy. Just make sure you're choosing the right folder. So I would select, in my case, I would select just this folder, copy, triangle, 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 HDD system, and then this is the folder that's being merged here. So we would R1 paste, reboot, and it should be in English. So that's what I'm going to do. I've already done all this. I'm just going to turn it off, turn it back on, boot to the main dash, and it should be in English. Okay, we are booting up. Now I played around with this 70 or 7000, as well as the later 77,000. And that 77 didn't have this staticky issue that the 7000 does, which is very annoying. And please let me know if you know a way, whatever it is, to disable to make it so it doesn't start up like this, because with audio on, this is very abrasive. It is static TV sounds, and it cuts on like a bat out of hell, but all you got to do to stop it is come in here to settings, hit circle on any of these options, and it mellows out. No more static. I would like to figure out a way to remove that static completely, but yeah, this is pretty much it. Now there's further applications that I plan to tinker with, some that allow you to install games directly to the PSX, like to play from the XMB screen here. Some homebrew stuff like that, installing it to the hard drive, which would be rad. And look at, we got all these nice little videos. I like it, it's neat. You can set it up to boot to OPL, add games to the hard drive, but I don't know, it's the PSX. Like, you kind of want to keep the XMB on there because it's a bit special. But that's about it. Now, if I were to put a disc in right now, it'll likely never come up. It's like really wishy-washy. Some of the Japanese games do actually come up in XMB, but I wasn't able to get any of my North American discs to show up here. I think it's got to be in when the console boots, it seems. Pretty sure XMB might have some further protections or whatever. But yeah, if you've got one of these that just won't read discs at all, I highly recommend, before tearing it open or anything, just follow along with what I did, because there's a good chance that your 400C laser, the one that reads PS1 and PS2 games, is totally fine, but the burner laser's dead, and XMB won't let your games read if that other laser's dead or wonky, but Freemcboot bypasses that laser completely. So very good chance that your PSX actually reads discs, even if they aren't coming up here in XMB. So give this a shot. I hope it helps some of you. It's been a rabbit hole getting into the PSX and dicking around. It's pretty unique, and kind of got to throw a lot of what you know out the window and start fresh. But it's been a fun adventure, and I'm pretty stoked on this thing. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. See you on the next one.